Ladies and gentlemen, and the world is watching, holding its breath. In a moment where headlines sound like war drums and fear ripples through every corner of the globe, we are faced with a question: what kind of people will we be when history calls our name? Today's title isn't just news, it's a test. Iran shocks the world. Bombers in Moscow, and Kremlin hints at nuclear support. Now, before fear takes root in your heart, let me tell you something. Storms don't break strong souls, they reveal them. Sometimes the world feels like it's on fire. Smoke in the air, threats in the sky, bombs drop, and the headlines scream louder than the voices of reason. But listen to me, this is not the time to panic. This is the time to rise. When global powers clash and missiles shadow city lights, the real power is not in a nuclear code. It's in human resolve. You see, chaos doesn't just shake borders, it shakes belief. And right now, while nations posture and leaders whisper the unthinkable, yes, you still have the power to stand for something that matters: peace, courage, conviction, truth. Let them talk about bombs. Let them test missiles. But remember this: the most dangerous weapon is a man or woman with no purpose. And the most unstoppable force is someone who has found it. We weren't made for silence in the face of fear. We weren't born to be spectators while the world tears itself apart. We were shaped by struggle, forged by faith. And if history wants to write another chapter soaked in blood, then we better be the ink that writes a different ending. Now, I don't care what uniform they wear. I don't care how loud the war drums get. What matters is that you remember who you are. You are not weak. You are not small. You are not just another name buried beneath rubble or rhetoric. You are power in its purest form, when it refuses to bow. So when the world shakes, you stand. When the fire rises, you speak. And when the darkness dares to close in, you shine. Like a storm that knows it's more than rain. There are moments in life when the world seems to spin out of control. Moments when tragedy strikes, headlines scream terror, and uncertainty wraps around us like a cold wind. These moments aren't rare. They're real, and they come for every generation. The sound of bombs in foreign skies, the rumble of tanks through silent streets, the whispers of nuclear threats from powerful men behind polished desks. They test the soul of humanity. They test the soul of you. But here's the truth: what happens to us is not what shapes us. What shapes us is what we do next. When chaos arrives, and it doesn't knock on the door and politely introduce itself. It kicks the door in. It shouts. It demands that you tremble, that you fall to your knees, that you give in to fear. But if you've lived long enough, you know this chaos only has the power you give it. See, everyone can stand tall when the sun is shining. Everyone has a plan when the road is smooth. But the measure of a person, the core of their character, is revealed when everything they knew starts to fall apart. When the headlines don't make sense. When friends turn to enemies. When the rules of yesterday no longer apply. That's when you find out who you really are. You don't need to control chaos to conquer it. You just need to decide that it won't control you. Because here's what they won't tell you on the news. Courage doesn't come from the absence of fear. It comes from moving through fear. It comes from standing still when everything inside you is screaming to run. And if your heart is racing right now, if your mind is filled with what ifs and worst case scenarios, then good. That means you're human. But it also means you have a choice. The same fire that burns buildings can forge steel. The same storm that knocks down trees can clear the path for new growth. Chaos doesn't define us. It reveals us. It carves away the illusions. It shows us who's pretending and who's real. It shows us who's in it for comfort and who was born for this fight. And don't make the mistake of thinking this is just about nations, governments, or generals. No, this is personal. This is about the war inside, the one between fear and faith, between reaction and response, between giving in and standing up. Every time you choose not to be ruled by fear, you win. Every time you choose to respond with purpose instead of panic, you grow. Every time you raise your voice in the face of madness, not with anger, but with calm conviction, you become a leader in a world searching for one. There will be people who lose themselves to the noise, who echo every fearful thought, who spread panic like wildfire. But you were not born for that. You were born to lead by example, to be the calm in the chaos, to remind people by your very presence that storms don't last forever, and that even in the darkest hour, hope is not lost unless we surrender it. So the question is not, will the world be shaken? Of course it will. The real question is, will you stay grounded while it shakes? Because history doesn't remember the comfortable. It remembers the courageous. It remembers the ones who stood their ground when ground itself gave way. It remembers the voices that spoke when it was dangerous to speak. The souls who stayed centered when everything else scattered. And right now, in this hour, in this chaos, the world doesn't need more fear. It doesn't need more panic. It doesn't need more people telling us how bad things are. What it needs is someone like you. Someone who chooses strength over surrender. Someone who doesn't let events define them, but defines themselves in spite of the events. Someone who answers chaos not with cowardice, but with clarity. That is your power. That is your choice. And that is how you rise. It's easy to lead when the path is clear, when the crowd is quiet, when the skies are blue, and the voices around you say, Wes. But leadership, real leadership, is not forged in peace and applause. It's born in the storm. It reveals itself when the noise is deafening, when the pressure is suffocating, and when the world is demanding answers no one has. Noise will always be there. Doubts, criticism, fear, panic, opinions from every direction. And when the stakes are high, the noise only gets louder. People shout over each other, each one convinced they're right. Most are afraid. Some are angry. Few are clear. That's when you find out who's real. That's when the pretenders sit down and the true leaders rise. See, leadership isn't a title. It's not a position. It's not about having control. It's about having courage. It's about being the one who doesn't flinch when everyone else does. The one who keeps walking when the road ahead disappears. The one who speaks with calm when chaos wants to break the room. When the noise gets loud, most people either join it or hide from it. They either yell back or go silent. But true leadership doesn't do either. True leadership listens through the noise, then acts with clarity. It doesn't react. It responds. And in moments of crisis, in times like these, when words like war, nuclear, and destruction are being thrown around like casual phrases, what the world needs most isn't louder voices. It needs clearer ones. It needs people who know who they are, who aren't swayed by every headline or every opinion poll, who don't just move with the current, but have the strength to stand still in it, who can speak peace when everyone else is speaking panic. The world doesn't remember those who shouted the loudest. It remembers those who stood the strongest. Right now, we're in a moment that will be talked about for generations. When threats are made across borders, when nations rattle sabers, and the world's nerves are on edge, this is when leadership matters most. This is when your voice counts, not just the voice of presidents or generals, your voice. Because every family, every community, every team, every room is waiting for someone to lead. Someone to say, we're not going to give in to fear. We're not going to tear each other apart. We're going to hold the line. We're going to stay focused. We're going to move forward. You don't need a spotlight to lead. You don't need an audience. Sometimes the greatest leaders are never seen. They're just felt. Their presence calms the room. Their words bring direction. Their energy brings order to confusion. And they do it not because they have all the answers, but because they refuse to be ruled by fear. True leaders don't know everything. They don't pretend to, but they do know what matters. They know what they believe. They know what they're willing to stand for. And that certainty, that's what people follow. Not perfection, conviction. And here's the hard truth: leadership comes with weight. You will feel the pressure. You will carry the burden. People will question you. Some will doubt you. That's part of it. That's what separates leaders from the rest. They walk through that anyway. When the noise gets loud, and it will, you will be tempted to stay quiet, to wait for someone else to speak, to think, who am I to lead? But the real question is, who are you not to? You were born with something to say, something to give, something the world needs. And that something doesn't show up when everything is perfect. It shows up when everything is not. Don't let the noise turn you into an echo. Let it awaken your voice. You're not here by accident. You weren't made for easy days. You were made for moments like this. When the noise rises, and the world turns its eyes toward strength, toward reason, toward courage. That's when you show up. That's when you speak. That's when you lead. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the noise. It's about what you do with it. Will you let it drown you? Or will you rise above it and lead others to do the same? Leadership isn't found in silence or in shouting. It's found in action. in vision, in purpose. And when everything around you shakes, it's the leader who still stands, not because they're the loudest, but because they know why they're there. In a world where destruction is easy and fear is contagious, it's not strength that keeps you standing. It's purpose. Not bombs, not money, not power. Purpose. The quiet fire that lives inside a soul that knows why it's here. You can take away comfort. You can take away peace. You can take away safety. But you can't take away a person's purpose unless they give it up willingly. That's why the most dangerous thing in the world is not a man with a gun, but a man with no purpose. And the most unstoppable thing in the world is a person who has found theirs. When you look around and see the world shaking, threats rising, leaders making moves that could destroy everything, it's easy to feel powerless. But what if I told you that the most powerful thing isn't what's happening on a global stage, but what's happening inside you? The world will try to convince you that only the powerful can make change, that unless you're a general, a politician, a billionaire, your voice doesn't count. But that's a lie. History was never shaped by people sitting at the top. It was shaped by those who refused to back down from the bottom. And every one of them had something in common. They knew their purpose. Purpose doesn't come from titles. It doesn't come from applause. It comes from a deep understanding of who you are and why you're here. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It whispers to you in the quiet moments. And it roars when everything else tries to silence it. Purpose gives you direction when the world pulls you in every direction at once. It keeps your feet on the ground when the world tells you to run. It tells you to stand, to speak, to act, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Look at the world right now. Look at the fear. Look at the confusion. Look at the games being played with lives and futures. That's not just politics. That's a crisis of purpose. When people don't know what they stand for, they fall for anything. And when leaders lose sight of their purpose, they chase power instead of peace. But you don't have to live that way. You don't have to live confused. You don't have to follow the fear. You can make a decision right now to live with purpose, not next week, not next year, now. Because once you find your purpose, you become immovable. You become unshakable. You become a force the world cannot ignore. That doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means fear won't stop you. It means doubt won't define you. It means threats won't bend you. Purpose gives you a reason to keep going when everything else tells you to stop. It gives you the strength to stand in the fire and say, I will not be moved. And no weapon formed against you, not war, not chaos, not death itself, can touch the soul that is anchored in purpose. When bombs fall, when nations clash, when everything seems like it's coming apart, your purpose is what holds you together. It becomes your compass in the storm, your fuel in the dark, your reason when there seems to be none. And when the world sees that, when others watch you live with that kind of strength, they remember what's possible. You become the example. the standard, the voice people didn't know they needed. People may not always understand your purpose. That's okay. It's not for them. It's for you. And when you stay true to it, you make more of a difference than you'll ever realize. Because here's the truth. No one talks about war, doesn't just destroy cities. It tries to destroy meaning. It tries to make you believe there's no point, that nothing matters, that we're all just powerless pieces in someone else's game. But that's not the truth. That's the lie chaos wants you to believe. The truth is, you matter. Your voice matters. Your mission matters. So don't trade your purpose for comfort. Don't bury it because it's inconvenient. Don't silence it because the world is too loud. Hold it close. Let it guide you. Let it grow louder than fear. Let it speak louder than violence. Let it lead you through this fire and beyond it. Because when the smoke clears and the world asks who stood tall, who spoke with courage, who lived with intention, your name should be on that list, not because you were the strongest, but because you lived with purpose. And that, my friend, is the most powerful weapon you'll ever carry. It's loud out there. Turn on the news, and it's all fire and fury. Scroll through your feed, and it's war, disaster, collapse, betrayal. Everyone's got something to say, and most of it sounds like the end of the world. The voices are many, and most of them are shouting one thing: destruction. They're shouting about bombs dropped, about borders violated, about threats made behind closed doors. They're shouting fear, pain, revenge, and chaos. And the more they shout, the more they expect you to absorb that energy, to take it in, to become part of it, to mirror it, to be one more echo in the noise. But listen carefully. That's not your calling. That's not your assignment. That's not your voice. When the world starts shouting destruction, you don't add to the noise. You stand still, and you become the voice of resilience. Now, resilience doesn't shout back. It doesn't panic. It doesn't threaten. Resilience is quiet strength. It's the steel beneath the skin. It's the force that doesn't shake even when everything else does. And right now, more than ever, the world doesn't need more outrage. It needs more resilience. You see, it's easy to join the shouting. Anger is contagious. So is fear. People think if they yell loud enough, they'll be heard. But real power doesn't come from volume. It comes from clarity, from purpose, from conviction, and most of all, it comes from stillness in the storm. You don't calm chaos by being louder than it. You calm it by being stronger than it. Resilience is what keeps families together when war knocks on their door. Resilience is what rebuilds cities from rubble. It's what picks up broken pieces and turns them into a new foundation. And it's not something you find in a moment. It's something you build over time. Every hardship you've survived, every trial you've endured, every tear you've shed, they've been shaping that resilience inside you. And the world needs that now. Not just from leaders on stages, from you, from ordinary people with extraordinary strength, from quiet souls who decide they won't let the darkness win, from those who've seen too much to be naive, but who still choose to believe, still choose to build, still choose to stand. Because let's be honest, destruction is easy. Anyone can tear something down. Anyone can light a match and walk away. But to build something, to protect peace in the middle of chaos, that takes courage, that takes patience, that takes vision, and above all, that takes resilience. It means showing up when you're tired, speaking peace when you're surrounded by war, choosing love when hate is more convenient. It means holding on to faith when logic says, give up. It means being the one person in the room who doesn't flinch, not because you're unafraid, but because you've trained your spirit not to break. That's who you are. That's who you were born to be. The world may be shouting destruction, but destruction is not destiny. Not if we decide differently. Not if we become the resistance to that narrative. Not if we stop being consumed by fear and start becoming carriers of strength. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know every answer. You just need to decide, I will not go down with the fear. I will not let the noise write my story. I will not join the destruction. I will stand for the rebuilding. And yes, people may look at you and say, why aren't you more worried? Why aren't you more angry? Let them. You're not here to match their panic. You're here to be the presence of peace. You're not here to echo the collapse. You're here to model the comeback. The world is desperate for that kind of strength. Desperate for examples of what it means to remain grounded, calm, unshaken. Every generation has its chaos, but only a few voices rise above it. Only a few souls decide not to crumble under the pressure, but to become pressure itself. The kind that turns coal into diamonds. You have that inside you. You have that power. So let the world shout. Let it rage. Let it burn with its fury and fear. You stay rooted. You stay clear. You stay strong because your voice, steady, calm, true, just might be the one that reminds the world, we're not finished yet. We're not broken yet. We are not going down. We are rising. One act of resilience at a time. Life was never meant to be calm all the time. You weren't created to float through soft winds and quiet skies. You weren't placed here to tiptoe through safety. No, you were born for the fight. Born for the fire. Born for the days when the skies turn black and the world around you forgets how to breathe. Storms don't show up to destroy the strong. They show up to reveal them. You see, everyone wants strength, but no one wants the struggle. Everyone wants courage, but no one wants the confrontation. We say we want to be unshackable, but the moment the thunder rolls in, we reach for comfort, for safety, for a way out. But not you. That's not your story. Because if life has taught you anything, it's this. The fire doesn't come to burn you down. It comes to burn away everything that was never real. It's in the fire that weakness gets exposed. It's in the fire that falsehood melts away. It's in the fire that diamonds are made, steel is forged, and legacies are born. You weren't made to run from the fire. You were made to walk through it. And not just survive it, but shape it. That's what true power looks like. Not someone who escapes pain, but someone who knows how to use it. Someone who doesn't flinch when the pressure rises. Someone who leans into it, knowing it's making them stronger, clearer, and more dangerous to every limit that ever tried to hold them back. There will always be fire. That's life. That's the world. Whether it's the fire of war, the fire of betrayal, the fire of uncertainty, it comes. But when it comes, you have a choice. You can shrink or you can rise. You can hide or you can step into the flames with purpose in your eyes and strength in your spine. Because the fire respects those who don't fear it. And the storm will test you, yes. It will throw everything it has at you. But if you stand, if you hold your ground, the storm doesn't win. You do. And when it's over, you're not the same. You're better, stronger, sharper, more focused. Because you didn't just go through the storm, you let it shape you. And that's the difference between those who endure and those who evolve. One survives. The other transforms. Let the world panic. Let others run in circles trying to escape the heat. You were made for moments like this. You've got scars, but they're not weaknesses. They're reminders. Reminders that you've walked through worse and still rose. That you faced fires before and came out with flames in your soul. The world doesn't need more people running from storms. It needs people who become storms. People who walk into crisis not with fear, but with fire in their bones. People who speak truth when silence would be safer. People who stay steady while the ground shakes. People who know that destruction is not the end. It's the beginning of something new. And that's who you are. The fire didn't break you. The storm didn't wash you away. The chaos didn't confuse you. It clarified you. It pulled away the masks, the lies, the doubts. And what's left? A force to be reckoned with. You don't just survive hard times. You shape what comes next. You are the blueprint for strength, the example of resilience, the proof that even when the sky falls and the earth cracks open, some souls were made to walk straight through it and still stand tall. This is not the end. This is not destruction. This is the forge, the battlefield where greatness is born. And your role in it is not to shrink, not to disappear, not to wait for someone else to fix it. Your role is to step forward, to look the fire in the eye and say, I'm still here. To let the storm know it picked the wrong one. To remind the world that true power isn't found in avoidance. It's found in endurance, in transformation, in choosing to shape what survives rather than fear what's falling apart. So no, don't fear the fire. Don't curse the storm. Embrace it, use it, let it sharpen you. Because you weren't born for peace and quiet. So here we are, standing in the shadow of a headline that sounds like it was ripped from a nightmare. Bombs in Moscow, nuclear whispers from the Kremlin, fingers pointing, threats rising, and fear moving faster than truth. The world is holding its breath, wondering what comes next. And while the world waits, I want to ask you something. What are you going to do? Not as a politician, not as a general, but as a human being. What are you going to believe? What are you going to carry into tomorrow? What kind of energy are you going to walk with when you leave this moment? Because the future isn't being built by headlines. It's being built by people. People like you, people who are watching this unfold and asking, does what I do even matter? Let me tell you something. It matters more than ever. In every generation, there comes a moment where fear tries to speak louder than faith, where destruction tries to convince us that it's permanent, where power tries to crush hope, and where the noise becomes so loud you almost forget what your own voice sounds like. This is that moment, but don't let that scare you. Let it wake you up, because if the world is going to fall apart, then somebody better be ready to hold it together. And maybe, just maybe, that somebody is you. See, you don't need to stop a missile to protect peace. Sometimes peace is protected by a father who stays calm when his children are scared. Sometimes it's protected by a teacher who shows up every day to teach hope when the news only preaches fear. Sometimes it's protected by a young woman who refuses to hate even when her heart is broken. You don't have to be famous to be fearless. You just have to decide. Decide that no matter what the world throws your way, you won't bend to panic. Decide that your values won't change just because the climate does. Decide that your soul is stronger than any headline. Decide that you won't wait for the fire to die down. You'll walk through it, carrying light. Because the truth is this: we're not just witnessing history, we're writing it. And the question the world will ask one day isn't just what happened. It's who stood tall when everything else fell, who kept their faith, who led with love, who looked fear in the eye and said, "Not today." Let that be your story. Let that be your legacy. Because when this chapter ends, and it will end, the bombs will stop, the speeches will fade, the noise will quiet. And the only thing that will remain is what we built in the middle of the storm. Did we build fear? Or did we build each other? Did we let the world shape us? Or did we rise up and shape the world? You see, the loudest moments in life are not always explosions. Sometimes they're the quiet decisions we make when no one is watching. The decision to rise instead of retreat, to lead instead of blame, to love instead of hate. And right now, in this noisy, broken, uncertain moment, you have a choice. You can be another frightened voice in the crowd, or you can be the reason someone else finds strength. You can be one more soul waiting for peace, or you can be the one who creates it. You can be a reflection of fear or a reminder of hope. Because I promise you this, the storm will pass. The fire will fade, but who you become in the middle of it, that stays. So take the fear, take the noise, take the chaos, and turn it into fuel. Fuel for your purpose, fuel for your passion, fuel for your voice, the one that says, even if the world burns, I will not break. You were not born for silence. You were not born for retreat. You were born for this fight. The fight for clarity, the fight for peace, the fight for purpose. Let the world shout destruction. You speak resurrection. Because if history is going to remember this moment, let it remember you, standing tall, speaking truth, living fireproof. Not because you had all the answers, but because when everything went dark, you still chose to be the light.